Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have a fascinating stack of source material today.
We do.
Usually, we're wading through, dense, nonfiction economic reports, historical biographies, scientific papers.
Right.
We take facts and we try to make sense of them. But today, we are pivoting. We're looking at fiction.
It is a pivot, but, I'd argue the goal remains exactly the same. We're still trying to understand human behavior.
Okay, I like that.
We're just doing it through the lens of the absolute master of the puzzle box mystery, Agatha Christie.
Specifically, we are looking at a collection of her short stories titled The Regatta Mystery and Other Stories.
Mm-hmm.
And before you, the listener, think, oh, a book review, let's be really clear about our mission here. We aren't just recounting plots.
No.
We are dissecting the mechanics of deception.
Right. Because when you read Christie, you aren't just reading a story. You are, you're engaging in a battle of wits with the author. She is actively trying to trick you.
She is. It feels personal sometimes.
It does. And she cheats, fairly, but she cheats by exploiting the way the human brain processes information. She uses our own cognitive biases against us.
That's the angle I want to take. I want to look at these stories as case studies in cognitive failure. How do we miss what is right in front of us?
Yeah.
How do we let our prejudices, completely blind us to the truth? And we have the perfect guides for this. This collection features the big three of the Christie universe, doesn't it?
It does. It's a bit of a sampler platter, which is great for our analysis. We have Hercule Poirot, obviously.
Of course.
We have Miss Marple.
Mm.
And we have a character who I think is criminally underrated, Mr. Parker Pyne.
Let's spend a moment on them before we get into the actual crimes. Because they aren't just characters. They represent three completely different methodologies for uncovering the truth.
Totally different philosophies.
Let's start with Poirot. In the stories we're looking at today, like The Mystery of the Baghdad Chest or Yellow Iris, how does his method actually work? Because it's not, CSI. He's not dusting for prints.
No, absolutely not. Poirot is the embodiment of pure abstract logic. He is Cartesian, really. He believes that the world should be orderly and symmetrical.
Everything in its place.
Everything. And if you look at his method, he rarely hunts for physical evidence in the dirt. He treats a crime scene like a math equation that hasn't been balanced yet.
That's a great way to put it.
If a picture is crooked or if a conversation feels emotionally off balance, that is his clue. He relies on the little gray cells. It's all internal processing over external data gathering.
So he's the rationalist.
Yes.
The logician.
Yes.
Then you have Miss Marple. And Miss Marple tells a story. She solves a murder without even leaving her chair.
Yeah.
She's the complete opposite, isn't she? She's almost intuitive.
I wouldn't say intuitive. I'd say she's an empiricist, but her data set is very, very specific.
Okay.
She relies on the village parallel. She believes that human nature is finite. There are only so many types of people and so many types of conflicts. She's seen them all play out in her tiny village of St. Mary Mead.
So when she sees a complex murder in a London hotel,
she just matches the pattern. She goes, oh, this is just like that time the grocer was feuding with the butcher over a fence line. It's pattern recognition.
Huh?
She uses small data to solve big problems.
The pattern matcher. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to Parker Pyne. He's the one I'm most interested in because he doesn't even call himself a detective.
No, he calls himself a specialist in unhappiness.
Which is just a great title on a business card, isn't it?
It is. He's essentially a statistician of the human soul. He views unhappiness as a disease that can be, diagnosed and cured.
So he's not about justice then?
Not primarily. Unlike Poirot, who wants to catch a criminal, or Marple, who wants to see justice done, Pyne just wants to adjust the variables of a person's life until they are happy again.
How does he do that?
Sometimes that involves solving a crime, but often it involves staging an elaborate hoax to change their perspective. He's a manipulator, but for a benevolent cause.
So we have the rationalist, the pattern matcher, and the manipulator. Okay, let's see how they handle deception. We've organized this deep dive into 4 sections based on how the deception happens. The first category is the art of visual deception.
This is the most fundamental type of magic trick. It's all about making the eye see what the brain expects rather than what is actually there.
Yeah, the headline story here is the title track, The Regatta Mystery. This is a Parker Pyne story. Set the scene for us because the setting is absolutely crucial to why the trick works.
Right. So we are in high society. We're in Dartmouth Harbor, a yachting party.
Very posh.
Very. It's the 1930s, so think dinner jackets, cocktails, and just immense wealth on display. Our central figure is Mr. Isaac Points. He's a diamond merchant, successfully rich, and bit of a show-off.
He sounds like he might be a victim.
He's that type, yes. And he has a massive diamond in his pocket called the Morning Star.
And just to contextualize the stakes for a moment, it's worth 30,000 pounds. In the 1930s, that is a life-altering fortune.
It's unbelievable money.
It's not just a rock, it's an empire in a pocket.
Exactly. And Poyntz is confident, overconfident. He's at dinner with his party, and there's a young American girl there, Eve Leathern, and her father. And Poyntz decides to have a bit of fun. He challenges Eve. He bets her that even if he hands her the diamond, she cannot successfully steal it from him.
This is the magician's choice right from the start.
Yeah.
He thinks he is controlling the game.
He's certain of it. He passes the diamond around the table. Everyone holds it, marvels at it. It gets to Eve. She holds it up, admiring the light, and then she drops it.
The old clumsy tourist routine.
The butterfingers. It hits the floor. She dives under the table to retrieve it. Naturally, the gentleman at the table dived down to help her. It's chaos for a few seconds.
A perfect moment of distraction.
A perfect moment. But when they all come back up, the diamond is gone.
And this is where the locked room element comes in. Or rather, the locked person. Because they don't let her leave, right?
Oh, no. Mr. Poyntz isn't an idiot. He realizes the game has turned very real. He has the women of the party take Eve behind a screen. They strip search her. They check her shoes, her stockings, every inch of her clothing. They search the floor. They search under the table on the dinner plates. The diamond has just evaporated.
So Parker Pyne enters the narrative.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing most detectives would start looking for a secret pocket or, a trap door in the floorboards.
Right. They'd look for a physical trick. But Pyne doesn't look at the room. He looks at the people.
Back to his statistics.
He uses that statistician's brain. He looks at Eve and her father. They claim to be American tourists, but Pyne classifies them. He realizes they fit the profile of the Amalfi Gang, a father-daughter team of high-end jewel thieves.
So he knows who did it.
Immediately. The problem is how? If she was strip-searched and didn't have it, where's the rock?
This brings us to the core of the visual deception. It's the purloined letter principle, right? From Poe.
Exactly. Edgar Allan Poe taught us that the best place to hide something is in plain sight, because people are looking for secrets, not open facts. Eve Leathern was carrying a cheap little evening bag. It had a clasp decorated with paste stones, fake rhinestones.
I think I see where this is going.
Before the dinner, she had pried one of those fake stones out of the clasp. She had a small ball of plasticine modeling clay in her pocket.
Plasticine. At a yacht party.
Exactly. When she went under the table, she didn't try to hide the diamond in her dress or her shoe. She simply took the real diamond and stuck it onto the clasp of her handbag with the plasticine.
That is incredibly bold.
It's audacious. She puts the bag back on the table. The police and the guests are tearing the room apart. They're looking inside the lining of the bag. They're looking in her hair. And the diamond is sitting right there on the table, staring them in the face, disguised as a piece of cheap costume jewelry.
It only works because of the context. No one expects a 30,000-pound diamond to be glued to a $5 handbag.
Our brain just filters it out. It says that's just a decoration and moves on.
It's that, what's it called? Inattentional blindness.
That's it, exactly. We focus so hard on the search for the hidden object that we literally cannot see the visible object. Parker Pyne solves it not by finding the diamond first, but by finding the means. He finds a tiny trace of plasticine on the carpet. And he asks the fundamental question. Why does a teenage girl have modeling clay in her pocket at a formal dinner?
That breaks the whole illusion. The clay proves premeditation. The accidental drop was a rehearsed move.
Precisely. The clumsiness was a performance. The whole thing was theater.
Let's pivot to the second story in this visual deception category. Miss Marple tells a story. This one deals with a different kind of invisibility. Not an invisible object, but an invisible person.
Yes. This is a classic impossible crime. A woman, a Mrs. Rhodes, is stabbed in her hotel room.
Okay.
The door is locked on the inside. The window is locked. The only other access is through the adjoining room, which was occupied by her husband.
Always the husband.
Always. Mr. Rhodes, the husband, is the narrator's client. He swears he is innocent. He claims he was working on his book about prehistoric flints, of all things.
So he was distracted.
Very distracted. And he saw no one enter the victim's room except a chambermaid who brought hot water bottles.
So the police arrest the husband.
Of course. Why? Because the witnesses in the corridor, an electrician and some guests, they swear that only two people went into that room. The husband and a chambermaid.
And since the chambermaid has no motive and she's just a simple local girl...
It must be the husband. It's a binary choice. Either the husband did it or the maid did it. The police choose the husband. Miss Marple chooses option C.
And she's not even there.
She's sitting in her armchair listening to the story, and she looks at the testimony. The husband says a chambermaid passed through. The witnesses in the hall say a chambermaid passed through. But Miss Marple asks the key question: did anyone see the face of the chambermaid?
Of course they didn't.
No. They saw a pink dress, they saw a white apron, they saw a cap, they saw the uniform.
The symbol, not the person.
Exactly. This is a commentary on class and social cognition in the 1930s. To the wealthy guests and the intellectually focused husband, a servant isn't a person with individual features. She is a function. She is furniture that moves.
So if you put on the uniform, you become invisible.
Correct. The killer was another woman, a Miss Carruthers, a guest at the hotel with a grudge against the victim. She simply put on a disguise. She walked past the witnesses, walked right through the husband's room while he was engrossed in his work, stabbed the woman, and walked out again.
But wait, the husband was in the room. He says he saw the chambermaid. Wouldn't he notice it was a different woman? He must have seen the regular maid before.
That's the brilliance of the psychological insight. He was focused on his prehistoric flints. He saw housemaid. His brain autofilled the rest. He didn't look at her face because he had no reason to, but Miss Marple catches the killer on a linguistic slip. This is the detail I absolutely love.
The dropped G's.
Yes. The husband mentions that the chambermaid spoke to him and said something about the writing room or gonna fetch something. She was dropping the G at the end of her words.
Which, to my ear, just sounds like a working-class accent. Cockney, maybe?
You would think so. That's what the killer was counting on. But Miss Marple points out a specific anachronism. In the Victorian and Edwardian eras, the upper aristocracy actually had a habit of dropping their G's.
The upper class did?
Yes. They would say, I'm going hunting or I'm going fishing. By the 1930s, this was dying out, but it was still a shibboleth of the very old, very rich upper class, a sort of affectation.
So a real working class maid in the 1930s wouldn't talk like that?
Exactly. A real maid would try to speak properly. She'd enunciate. The drop G was an affectation of the upper class, or more specifically, a theatrical idea of how a country person talks.
He was playing a part.
Miss Carruthers was acting, and she overacted. She used a linguistic stereotype that just didn't fit the reality of the time. That was the tiny crack in the armor.
That is so subtle. It requires knowing not just the clues, but the sociology of the era.
And that's why Marple solves it. She knows how people work, how they really talk.
All right, let's move to section 2. The psychology of manipulation. We're leaving the visual tricks behind and getting into the darker stuff, emotional engineering, and we have to talk about the mystery of the Baghdad chest.
Oh, this is one of the most macabre stories Christie ever wrote. It has a real gothic horror feel to it.
The setup is so vivid. A dance party in a bachelor pad. Major Rich is the host. People are drinking, dancing to the gramophone, playing poker.
A good time.
And in the corner of the room, there's this massive, ornate piece of furniture. A Baghdad chest.
And the next morning, they open the chest.
And find the body of Mr. Clayton, the husband of one of the guests, stabbed to death.
Chilling.
The horror isn't just the body, though. It's the timeline. The autopsy reveals he died during the party.
Mm-hmm.
So while his wife was dancing and laughing a few feet away, he was dying inside that box.
It's just ghastly. Now, the police, of course, they look at Major Rich. He's the host. He's in love with Mrs. Clayton. He has the motive. It looks like a classic crime of passion. But Poirot sees it differently. He sees the Othello dynamic.
Explain that for us. What does that mean here?
In Shakespeare's Othello, Othello kills his wife, Desdemona, out of jealousy. But Othello isn't the real villain. He's the weapon. The villain is Iago, the supposed friend who whispers lies into Othello's ear to drive him mad.
The manipulator.
The manipulator. Poirot realizes that Major Rich, the suspect, and Mrs. Clayton are victims here. The real villain is the third man, Major Curtis.
Curtis is Iago.
Yes. He wants Mrs. Clayton for himself. But he can't just kill the husband. That's too simple. He needs to eliminate his other rival, Major Rich, at the same time. So he constructs this elaborate scenario where Rich looks guilty of Clayton's murder.
But the mechanics of this are wild. How do you get a grown man to willingly climb into a wooden chest and stay there during a party?
This is where the psychological manipulation is just so cruel. Curtis spends weeks poisoning Clayton's mind. He tells him, your wife is having an affair with Major Rich. They are laughing at you behind your back. He works Clayton up into this frenzy of paranoia and jealousy.
So he's feeding the worst parts of his nature.
He is. And then he suggests the plan. Go to Rich's party. I'll help you hide in the chest. You can listen to them. You'll finally get the proof you need.
He weaponizes Clayton's own jealousy against him.
He turns Clayton into a co-conspirator in his own murder. It's diabolical. And Poirot finds the physical proof. There are holes bored into the back of the chest.
For what?
For air. You don't drill air holes for a corpse. You drill them for a living man who expects to be hiding in there for a while.
So Clayton is lying in the dark, listening to the party, probably getting more and more angry, thinking he is about to catch his wife cheating.
And then Curtis, who is at the party, a guest like everyone else, waits for a loud moment in the music. He casually goes over to the chest, lifts the lid. Clayton probably looks up, expecting his friend, and Curtis stabs him through the heart. He closes the lid and goes back to his drink.
It's sociopathic.
Yeah.
Just the coldness of it.
It's effectively a perfect alibi. How can he be the killer? He was in the room with 5 other people the whole time. But the audacity of committing the murder right in the middle of the crowd is what protects him.
It reminds me of that phrase, hiding in the noise. Both literal noise from the gramophone and social noise from the party.
And psychological noise. He created so much emotional drama around the love triangle that no one even thought to look at the quiet, helpful friend on the sidelines.
Let's lighten the mood, because that is grim. We have a Parker Pyne story next, Problem at Pollenza Bay. No bodies in this one, thank goodness.
No, just a very, very unhappy mother.
Mrs. Chester, the archetypal overbearing mother. She is on vacation in Majorca with her son, Basil. Basil wants to marry a girl named Betty.
And Betty sounds great.
Betty is a modern girl. She works, she wears trousers, she drinks cocktails.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Chester is horrified. She thinks this is the end of the world. She's ruining the engagement.
Classic.
So Parker Pyne needs to fix this. Now, a normal counselor would sit the mother down and say, look, you need to let him go. Times are changing. This is fine.
But Pyne knows that logic doesn't cure prejudice. Emotional shock cures prejudice. He employs what you might call the contrast principle.
Okay, how does he deploy it?
He realizes that Mrs. Chester hates Betty because she thinks Betty is unconventional. So Pyne decides to show her what unconventional really looks like.
He's going to find someone worse.
Much worse. He hires an actress, a woman named Madeleine de Serra, to seduce Basil right in front of his mother.
But not a subtle seduction.
Oh, no. It is a full-blown caricature of everything Mrs. Chester fears. Madeleine dresses in loud, garish colors. She wears thick ochre powder on her face. She has an orange scarlet mouth. And the detail that just kills me every time.
What's it?
She kicks off her shoes to reveal emerald green toenails.
Emerald green. That is a statement.
In the 1930s, that is the height of vulgarity. She laughs too loud, she hangs all over Basil, she openly mocks the mother. She is Mrs. Chester's absolute nightmare come to life.
So what happens to the mother's opinion of the original fiancée, Betty? The one in trousers.
Suddenly, Betty looks like an angel from heaven. Betty wears trousers, sure, but at least she doesn't have green toenails. At least she's polite and has a job. The mother is so traumatized by the new girl that she begs Basil to go back to the old girl.
It's manipulative as anything, but it works. Pyne shifts the baseline. He makes the bad option look good by introducing a terrible option.
It's a technique used in sales and negotiation and apparently in sorting out parenting disputes in Majorca. Christie just understands that our judgment is all relative, not absolute.
Moving on to Section 3, Theatrical Murders and Impossible Mechanisms. This is where we get the Rube Goldberg machines of death.
I love these ones.
The killers here aren't just manipulating minds, they're manipulating physical space in bizarre and wonderful ways. The dream is the standout here.
This is a locked room mystery involving a suicide that isn't a suicide. The victim is Benedict Farley. He is a millionaire, but he's a total eccentric recluse. He lives in a dark room, eats cabbage soup, and is incredibly paranoid.
And he calls Poirot because of a recurring dream.
Right. He claims that every night at exactly 3:28 p.m., he dreams he takes a revolver from his desk drawer, walks to the window, and shoots himself in the head.
That's specific.
Very. And lo and behold, a week later, he is found dead on the pavement below his window. Shot. The clock in his room is stopped at 3:28 p.m.
It looks like the dream came true, or maybe some kind of post-hypnotic suggestion forced him to do it.
That's the theory. But Poirot spots the physical discrepancies. The key is in the setup of the room and a specific phobia. Farley absolutely hated cats. He had agoraphobia. Couldn't stand them.
Okay, so keep the cat in mind. Now, introduce the weapon, because it wasn't just a gun. There was another piece of equipment.
Yes, lazy tongs.
Lazy tongs.
Lazy tongs. They are an extendable scissor mechanism. Think of those long grabber arms people use to pick up trash, but made of a heavy metal lattice.
I can picture it.
The killer, Farley's secretary, Hugo Cornworthy, was in the room directly below Farley's.
So the killer is downstairs, the victim is upstairs. How do they connect?
Cornworthy leans out of his window. He extends the lazy tongs up toward Farley's window above him. And held in the grip of the tongs is a stuffed black cat.
It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. A puppet show murder?
It is absurd, but it's based on a real physiological reaction. He dangles this cat against the glass. Farley, sitting at his desk, sees this monster clawing at his window. Panic overrides reason. He rushes to the window and throws it open to shove the beast away.
And that puts him in position.
Exactly. As soon as his head leans out, Cornworthy, who is waiting below with a rifle, shoots him. The noise of the city traffic masks the gunshot. Farley falls out. It looks like he jumped or shot himself and fell.
So the lazy tongs are the physical mechanism, but the cat is the psychological trigger. The killer knew he couldn't physically force the man to the window, so he used fear to pull him there.
Precisely. But there's another layer of deception here, a really clever one regarding eyesight. Poirot realizes early on that he was tricked. When he first met Farley in that dark room, it wasn't Farley at all.
It was an imposter.
It was the secretary, Hugo, in a disguise, a dressing gown and thick glasses.
How did he figure that out?
Yeah.
It wasn't the disguise itself.
No, it was the function of the glasses. The real Benedict Farley was severely nearsighted. He wore these thick bottle-bottom glasses and couldn't see a thing without them. The imposter, the secretary, had normal vision. He wore the thick glasses as a prop.
But wouldn't thick glasses make a normal person basically blind?
They would, and that's the clue. Poirot noticed that the man he was talking to was holding papers far away to read them, or glancing at things across the room. He was acting like a blind man, but his physical reflexes showed he could see perfectly well.
So it's another version of the invisible chambermaid. We see the glasses, so our brain registers bad eyesight. We don't stop to verify if the glasses are actually functioning lenses or just props.
Christie loves to invert physical traits like that.
In The Yellow Iris, we see another theatrical setup. This one is less mechanical and more atmospheric.
This is a Poirot story set in a restaurant called the Yellow Iris. The host, a man named Barton Russell, is reenacting a dinner party where his wife died 4 years ago.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
It is. He invites the same guests, he plays the same music, he's trying to, I don't know, smoke out the killer.
Nothing good ever happens at a reenactment dinner. It's practically asking for a second murder.
And that's exactly the plan. The atmosphere is thick with dread, there's a cabaret singer, and the song lyrics are important here. She sings about forgetting and smoke getting in your eyes. It's hypnotic.
Setting the mood?
Lulling them, and then the lights go out.
A blackout. Classic.
Total darkness. When the lights come up a minute later, a guest named Pauline is slumped over at the table, apparently dead, poisoned, cyanide in her champagne.
The classic smell of bitter almonds.
Yes. But here's the twist. In the story, Poirot is there, and he actually intervenes. He saves her. He figured out the deception in the act. The trick here was simple. When the lights went out, where did the host go?
In the dark, no one knows.
The host, Barton Russell, slipped away from his seat. He put on a white waiter's jacket he had hidden. He moved through the darkness, pretending to be a waiter. He whispered to Pauline, poured her a fresh drink, slipped the poison in, and got back to his seat just before the lights came up.
Again, the waiter as a non-entity, an invisible person.
Yeah.
But here, the darkness is the accomplice.
It's sensory deprivation. The music lulls the brain, the darkness blinds the eye, and the killer moves in that created void. He relies on the chaos of the moment to mask his precision.
Let's move to our final section. Nature, symmetry, and the supernatural. This is where Christie gets a little more abstract, a little weird. In How Does Your Garden Grow? The clue isn't a gun or a cat. It's a border of shells and a garden.
This story perfectly illustrates Poirot's obsession with symmetry. An elderly woman dies of strychnine poisoning. The suspicion naturally falls on her Russian companion.
The foreigner, the outsider.
Always the easy target. But Poirot visits the house, and he doesn't interrogate anyone. He just looks at the garden.
And he sees a flower bed.
He sees a flower bed, yes, with a border of oyster shells lining the path, like the nursery rhyme, Mistress Mary, quite contrary, with cockle shells. But Poirot is bothered. He's visibly irritated by this garden.
Why? It's just some shells.
Because the line of shells isn't finished. There's a gap. The symmetry's broken. Now, to an average person, it's just a messy, unfinished garden. To Poirot, an aesthetic flaw implies a moral flaw. He asks the simple question, why are there oyster shells here?
And the answer is the key to the whole crime.
The maid reveals they had oysters for dinner a few nights ago, but oysters were not on the official menu. The killer, the victim's niece, Mary, brought them as a special treat just for her aunt.
So the poison was in the oyster?
Yes. But afterwards, the niece had a problem. She had the empty shells. She couldn't just put them in the trash, because the kitchen staff would see them and say, hey, we didn't buy or serve oysters. That would immediately prove she brought outside food in, linking her directly to the poisoning.
So she had to dispose of the murder weapon, the shells?
She took them to the garden and tried to hide them in plain sight by making a decorative border. Oh, look at me, I'm just gardening. But she didn't have quite enough shells to finish the line properly.
And that missing gap, that broken symmetry, is what caught her.
It's brilliant. The unfinished border wasn't just bad gardening, it was the debris of a murder. Only Poirot, with his obsessive-compulsive need for order, would look at a flower bed and see a confession.
Finally, let's talk about the real outlier in this collection.
Yeah.
In It Glass Darkly. This is basically a ghost story, or at least it pretends to be.
It's very un-Christie. There's no detective. It's just a strained, unsettling tale. A young man, the narrator, is staying at a friend's house. He looks into a mirror in his room. But instead of his own reflection, he sees a vision.
What does he see?
He sees a room he's never been in before. And in that room, he sees a man with a distinct scar on his cheek strangling a beautiful girl.
A premonition of a murder.
He's terrified by it. Later, during his stay, he actually meets the girl from the vision. And then he meets her fiancé, and the fiancé has the scar.
So he intervenes. He thinks he can save her.
He does what any decent person would do. He tells her about the vision. She's spooked. She believes him. She breaks off the engagement to the scarred man. The supposed killer is sent away. The narrator steps in, comforts her, and eventually marries her.
So he prevented the murder. Happy ending.
You would think so. But Christie plays the long game here. Years pass. The narrator loves his wife, but he becomes possessive. He becomes intensely, irrationally jealous. It turns toxic. Then, during the war, he is injured. He receives a facial wound, a scar on his cheek, in the exact same place.
I see where this is going. And it is not good.
One day, in a fit of jealous rage, he finds himself in that very room from the vision, his hands around his wife's throat. He looks up and sees their reflection in the mirror. And he realizes he is the man with the scar. He was seeing himself all along.
That is a punch in the gut.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. By acting to prevent the vision, he set in motion the exact chain of events that caused it to come true. If he hadn't intervened, she might have married the other man and lived a perfectly happy life. It was his own future jealousy that he saw in the mirror.
It's a psychological loop. It questions whether we can escape our own nature. It's not a whodunit, it's a who will I become.
Exactly. It's Christie saying that sometimes the most dangerous villain isn't the man with the gun or the poison, it's the darkness we carry inside ourselves.
So pulling this all together, we've covered lazy tongs, plasticine, invisible maids, and self-fulfilling prophecies. If we had to synthesize a Christie formula for deception from these stories, what is it? What's the takeaway for you, the listener?
I think it boils down to 3 core principles of what you could call cognitive hacking.
Okay, lay them on me.
First, the blind spot of bias. Christie constantly uses our social prejudices to hide the killer. We don't really look at servants. We don't really look at silly old ladies. We dismiss loud American tourists as stereotypes. If you want to disappear, act like someone the observer doesn't respect or notice.
That's powerful and depressingly true. What's the second?
Second, the power of the mundane object. The plasticine, the oyster shells, the lazy tongs. These are boring everyday items. We filter them out because they don't look like weapons or clues. Christie takes the trivial and makes it lethal. She teaches us that nothing is irrelevant.
Everything is data.
Everything. And the third, the least likely suspect physically. It's not just about the social role, like the butler did it. It's the man who was already locked in the box did it. The man who was supposedly blind did it. The narrator who is trying to prevent the murder is actually the murderer. She challenges the absolute physical assumptions we make about space and capability.
It really changes how you view the world reading her work like this. You start looking at a waiter and wondering, is that a waiter? Or a millionaire in a jacket? You look at a messy garden and wonder if it's evidence.
It teaches you a form of critical thinking. As Poirot would say, human nature is much the same everywhere. Whether you are in a London hotel or a Mallorcan resort, people are driven by the same greeds, fears, and jealousies. If you can understand the psychology, you can solve the puzzle.
That is a fantastic place to leave it. But before we go, I have a provocation for you, the listener. We talked about the dream, where the killer used a simple phobia, a fear of cats, to lure a man to his death.
A very effective psychological trap.
So ask yourself, what is your cat? What simple quirk or habit or irrational fear do you have that an Agatha Christie villain could use against you? What would be the thing that could lure you to the window?
A chilling thought to end on.
Think about that as you go about your day. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.